Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my Endless Diary Tales channel? Thank you so much. Ethan and I were childhood sweethearts growing up side by side. In the AI community, everyone knew he was proud and arrogant, always holding his head high as if no one was ever good enough for him. I was the only quiet, well-behaved girl who could ever make him patient. But later on, another girl appeared beside Ethan. Wild, defiant, and free-spirited. People said she was exactly his type. I gradually began to distance myself, avoiding him whenever I could. He too seemed to be avoiding me until one night when I finally came home. It was late, the house silent, and he climbed through my bedroom window. He pressed his lips against my waist, and my entire body trembled. Then he leaned close to my ear, his breath warm and teasing as he whispered with a soft laugh, "Nah, if you dare to avoid me one more time, just see what happens." The sound of clinking glasses filled the air. Lights flickered, and the atmosphere in the private lounge buzzed with energy. In the center of the room, a man and a woman were surrounded by a cheering crowd. The woman held a dice cup in one hand, her movements smooth and graceful, as fluid as running water. When she lifted her hand to reveal the dice, the entire room burst into excited shouts. "Oh my God, she's incredible. No way. Ethan actually lost." Ethan leaned back lazily in his chair, legs crossed, his eyes falling on the dice with a faint, indifferent glance. "Not bad," he said casually. "You've got some skill." Then he lifted his glass and drained it in one go. It was the first time anyone had ever seen Ethan lose and be forced to drink as punishment. Instantly, phones were pulled out, and everyone began recording the scene, eager to post it on social media. Lana smiled faintly, her dark red lips seductive under the soft lighting. Her eyes shimmered with a kind of confident allure. "It's nothing really, just luck," she said with a playful smirk. "But winning against Mr. Ethan tonight, I'd say that's worth celebrating." The cheers grew even louder, filling the room with noise and laughter. From the corner, I tightened my grip around my wine glass without realizing it. A strange emotion rose inside me as my gaze fell on Lana's sharp, beautiful face. So confident, so arrogant. My expression darkened. So that was her, Lana. No wonder everyone said she was beautiful. I had heard her name countless times, yet I'd never met her in person until tonight. Ethan and I had grown up together, our families mansioned side by side in Los Angeles. Since the age of 5, we'd gone to and from school together every day. Everyone in the AI field knew Ethan. His pride was as high as the sky. I was the only girl he ever had patience for. But recently, a new girl had appeared next to him. Lana, a famous race car driver with quite a reputation. They said she was bold, rebellious, and carefree. Exactly Ethan's type. At first, I didn't pay her much attention. After all, Ethan had always been impossibly handsome, the kind of man girls couldn't stop chasing. But he had never once looked twice at any of them. Yet, when Lana's name began slipping into his conversations more and more often, I suddenly realized how frequently I was hearing it. The people around him had already grown used to talking about her. "Did you hear? Ethan raced Lana and actually lost. He even gave her a McLaren." "No way. Didn't he know she's a professional racer?" "Maybe he did. Maybe he wanted to lose. A McLaren's nothing if it makes her happy." "Seriously, but isn't Ethan still seeing that girl, Nina?" "You mean Nina Thompson? Ethan probably just sees her as a little sister. She's got trouble hearing, right? He's just been looking out for her all these years out of sympathy. If they really wanted to be together, they would have been by now. With Ethan's personality, there's no way he'd wait that long." "Yeah, true. When you put it that way, it makes sense. Lana and Ethan really do make a perfect match," someone said. And though I knew eavesdropping wasn't right, those words still stung. That day, I was struggling over a simple data problem. I'd been in the lab all day but still couldn't find the solution. When Ethan arrived, I was chewing on my pen, absent-mindedly staring at the blank sheet of paper in front of me. He didn't say a word, just set a cup of yogurt beside me, put on his headphones and sat nearby playing games, his posture lazy and casual. From time to time, he'd glance at me out of the corner of his eye. I'd been calculating for hours but nothing worked. Frustrated, I finally set my pen down and called out, "Ethan." He pulled off his headphones. "What is it?" "Can't get it to fit the formula." I looked straight into his eyes. You're going to the bar with your friends tonight, right? He tilted his head slightly, resting his chin in his hand. Yeah, why? I want to go too. Ethan froze for a second, then raised his eyebrows with a faint, amused smile. He stood up, helping me pack up my things, and chuckled. Well, look at that. The sun must be rising in the west today. I pouted. You don't have to tease me. He didn't get mad, just gave a lazy shrug. All right, I won't tease you. When we arrived at the lounge, Ethan had one hand in his pocket and my backpack slung over his shoulder. As soon as we walked in, his friends turned to greet him. Hey, Ethan. Wait, why are you carrying a backpack? Then they noticed me walking in behind him. The noise dropped a few notches. Oh, Na's here too. I gave a small nod. Ethan smiled, clearly in good spirits. Yeah, he said lightly. I brought her along to have some fun. He led me to the sofa and after a moment's hesitation, I tugged on his sleeve. I want to drink. Ethan nodded, but under my expectant gaze, raised a hand to the waiter. Get her a fruit drink, he said. I looked at him, feeling wronged and childish all at once. Just then Lana arrived. The atmosphere in the room immediately shifted, brighter, louder, more alive. She suggested playing dice, and everyone eagerly agreed. Then she called out, Ethan, want to play? I froze mid-sip, lifting my head toward her. Very few people ever dared call Ethan by his full name to his face, but he didn't get angry. He merely lifted his eyes, his expression detached. Not interested, he said coolly. Lana looked at me through the crowd, a teasing smile curling on her lips before turning back to Ethan. What's wrong, Ethan? Don't tell me you're scared of losing to me again. Ethan's eyes narrowed slightly, a smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth. Fine, one round just to humor you. Under the flashing lights, everyone gathered around as the two of them played. Lana won again, her face glowing with pride. I looked at Ethan and suddenly realized they really did look perfect together. I smiled faintly, something inside me letting go, and quietly picked up my purse to leave. Ethan was reckless and defiant. He fought hard, lived fast, and had a wild temper that most people wouldn't dare provoke. Yet, in everything he did, he excelled. He was the kind of golden boy everyone admired from afar. And I was quiet, disciplined, and raised under strict rules. My world revolved around books and lessons. To most people, I was the deaf girl. My hearing had been damaged since birth. Not completely gone, but weak enough that I often missed things. That made me quiet, reserved, and distant from others. No matter how you looked at it, Ethan and I were from two completely different worlds. Yet, he had always stayed by my side, protecting me for over 10 years. Since childhood, I'd worn a hearing aid. Every time someone called me the deaf girl, Ethan would be the one to stand up for me. He was always patient, never once showing annoyance. But loving him, that was the one secret I could never say aloud. Throughout my youth, that secret stayed buried deep inside. We were best friends. I treasured that bond more than anything. And because of that, because I didn't want to ruin what we had, I never dared to take a single step closer. I never dared to dream too much. I used to believe that maybe, just maybe, Ethan and I could become something more until the night of my 18th birthday. In my room, Ethan suddenly pulled me into his arms, one strong hand gripping my waist as he pressed me against the door. The position was close, too close, and there was something dangerously suggestive about it. Our bodies were separated by only a thin layer of fabric, our warmth mingling. He was so close that all I could smell was the faint scent of alcohol on his breath. The moment I sensed the change in him, my face flushed scarlet. Ethan chuckled softly, leaning close to my ear, saying something in a low, rough voice, but I had just come out of the shower and hadn't put my hearing aid back on. I pointed to my ear and said, "What did you say? I can't hear you." He didn't answer. Instead, he loosened his grip and crouched down in front of me. Carefully, he slipped the pair of high heels he'd given me onto my feet. His fingers brushed against my ankle, light, deliberate, and lingering, sending a shiver straight up my spine. I flinched and pulled my foot back instinctively. Ethan's gaze darkened. He didn't touch me again. Instead, he reached up and helped me put on my hearing aid. His voice was low and husky when he said, "You look beautiful, Nina. Happy 18th. I hesitated, staring at him. "Ethan, are you drunk?" His dark eyes met mine, deep and unreadable. Then he gave a soft, lazy smile. Yeah, I guess I am. There was a tenderness in his eyes that I couldn't name. Something that made my heart flutter and filled me with false hope, making me think that maybe, just maybe, I had a chance. But this was Ethan. How could someone like him ever fall for a boring girl like me? He treated me kindly because our families were close. Because the adults had asked him to look after me. That was all. People always said, if two people really wanted to be together, they would have been together long ago. On the way home, the night wind brushed against my face, clearing my head. I realized I'd never really thought about what life would be like if Ethan wasn't there anymore. Since childhood, he had always been by my side. I had grown used to his presence, so much so that I couldn't imagine my world without him. Even when we applied for college, we chose the same school without hesitation. But the truth is, no one belongs to anyone forever. Now there was another girl by Ethan's side, someone prettier, bolder, better, and I didn't want to become the kind of girl who clung to someone who'd already moved on. Keeping my distance was the only choice I had left. The sudden ringing of my phone broke through the quiet of the night. Without thinking, I declined the call. Then it rang again. I declined it once more. It was the first time I'd ever ignored Ethan's call. But no matter how many times I hung up, he kept calling again and again, relentless. It was as if he refused to give up. Finally, I exhaled sharply and pressed accept. Nina Thompson. His voice came through, edged with anger. You've gotten bold, huh? Leaving without a word. You're mad. I asked softly. You were having fun. I didn't want to bother you. It's late, he snapped. You're going home alone at this hour. How am I supposed to be okay with that? Where are you? Stay put. I'm coming to get you. No need, I said quietly. I'm 21 now, not a child. I can get home on my own. I refused to tell him where I was. On the other end, I heard him sigh, his voice softening a little. You're mad because I didn't let you drink, aren't you? You can't handle alcohol, Nina. You'll just wake up with a headache tomorrow. It's not that, I said. There were a few seconds of silence. Then his voice came again, low and dangerous. Then why? I stayed quiet for a long time. When I finally spoke, my voice was barely above a whisper, trembling in my throat. Because I don't want to be your friend anymore. Why? Ethan's tone dropped, his words sharp, threatening. I bit my lip. Because you're getting in the way of me dating someone. Ethan's voice hardened instantly. So you're trying to fall in love now, huh? I hesitated, my voice small. That's why I think we should keep some distance. On the other end, I heard the flick of a lighter and the faint inhale of a cigarette. His laugh was cold. Nah, Thompson, he said, his tone dripping with mockery. Why don't you bring that boyfriend of yours here so I can meet him? The call ended abruptly, leaving my heart racing in panic. When the phone rang again, I gritted my teeth and blocked his number. God, I couldn't believe what I had just done. I'd actually blocked Ethan's number. I knew what kind of person he was. He would never let this slide. He would definitely come after me for it. Luckily, tomorrow I'd be joining the new research group at Stanford. I got accepted for a student exchange program at a university in City B. If not for that, I truly wouldn't have known how to face Ethan again. I had already asked my advisor for this opportunity a week earlier, and Ethan still had no idea about it. I'd always been terrible at talking things out. Avoidance was what I did best. So the plan was simple. Tomorrow I'd buy a plane ticket, pack my bags, and leave as quickly as possible. The next day I dragged my suitcase through the airport, and by evening, I had settled into my new dorm at a university. Only then did I finally let out a sigh of relief. For now, I didn't want to think about Ethan or Lana anymore. After getting familiar with my research group, I buried myself in lab work. During that time, my phone kept lighting up with calls from unknown numbers. I didn't need to check to know it was Ethan. Judging from how often the calls came, he must have been furious. But every time he called from a new number, I blocked it again. Eventually, the calls stopped coming altogether. 3 months later, the exchange program ended. Winter break had started for most universities, so I returned straight home to Crest City. Snow blanketed the streets as I rolled my suitcase along the icy road, the wheels leaving deep tracks behind me. Unlike City B's damp chill, Crest City's winter was sharp and dry with thick snow everywhere. Children were outside building snowmen, their faces flushed pink from the cold. When I finally got home, my mom rushed to brush the snow off my coat, grabbing my hands anxiously. "How was the lab at a university, sweetheart?" she asked. My dad folded his newspaper, stood up, and headed into the kitchen to make me a mug of hot ginger tea. That night was the first time I saw Ethan again. To welcome me home, his parents insisted on throwing a dinner party at the most upscale restaurant in Crest City. When I pushed open the private room door, I was the last one to arrive. Every pair of eyes turned toward me at once. Despite the crowd, I spotted Ethan immediately. At the sound of the door opening, he lazily lifted his gaze, giving me a faint, indifferent look that revealed absolutely nothing. He leaned back in his chair, idly scrolling through his phone, occasionally glancing at the person next to him. "Nah, come sit with me, dear Mrs. Miller," Ethan's mom called warmly. I smiled politely and nodded. "Yes, ma'am." As I walked past Ethan, he didn't even look up from his phone, his expression perfectly blank. I took the seat beside Mrs. Miller, only to realize it put me directly across from him. No one said anything, yet somehow the silence between us felt suffocating. Maybe it was just my imagination, but I could swear I caught Ethan's eyes flickering toward me every now and then, sometimes deliberately, sometimes by accident. His face, however, remained calm and unreadable, making it impossible to guess what he was thinking. God help me! His face was already cold by nature, but when he looked at someone with that expressionless gaze, it only made them feel more uneasy. I gripped my chopsticks tightly and lowered my head, avoiding his eyes altogether. I had no idea what things were like between him and Lana now. Probably going well. They suited each other so perfectly. I should have felt happy for him, and maybe I did a little, but there was still that faint, nameless ache deep inside my chest. "Nah, eat some more, dear," Mrs. Miller said kindly, her voice pulling me out of my thoughts. "You look thinner than before." She peeled a shrimp and placed it into my bowl. I forced a smile and quickly pushed all my wandering thoughts aside. Throughout dinner, I chatted with Mrs. Miller, keeping the conversation light and cheerful. Meanwhile, the air around Ethan seemed to grow colder by the minute, but I pretended not to notice. By the time dinner finally ended, Ethan and I hadn't exchanged a single word. When I got home that night, the first thing I did was take a long hot shower. It felt wonderful to finally relax. After drying my hair, I opened the bathroom door and immediately bumped straight into a solid chest. I almost fell backward, but a strong hand caught me by the waist just in time. The familiar warmth of Ethan's breath brushed against my skin. The window in my room had been left open somehow, letting in the cold night air. My forehead still stung from the impact as I looked up at him, glaring. "You climbed through my window again." Ethan let out a low chuckle, his eyes glinting as he looked down at me. His hand, still on my waist, began to move slowly, tracing lazy circles over my skin. Then, without warning, he pushed the bathroom door open wider and pulled me gently but firmly back inside. "Ethan, what are you doing?" I demanded. He didn't answer. Instead, he slipped a hand behind my head and pressed me back against the cool tiled wall. I frowned slightly, but Ethan remained calm, his touch careful as he gathered my damp hair and tied it loosely. Then he placed my hearing aid back into my ear. His deep, husky voice brushed against it. "You doing okay these past 3 months?" I glared at him but said nothing. He didn't get angry, just gave a soft, rough laugh, his voice dropping lower. "Because I've been doing terribly." His warm breath ghosted over my neck. 2 whole months, Nina. No calls, no messages. What? Does your new boyfriend keep you on a leash that tight? I struggled, but his grip only tightened, his body pressing closer. "Nina Thompson," he murmured near my ear, his tone dark. "Try avoiding me one more time. Just try." I looked up, meeting his eyes. They were pitch black and intense, burning with something I'd never seen before. Something fierce, possessive, and barely restrained. Whatever he was holding back, it was threatening to consume both of us. My body froze. "Ethan," I whispered carefully, "what's wrong with you?" He gave a quiet, humorless laugh, his hand behind my neck tightening. "What's wrong? You've been hiding from me for 3 months. The girl I've protected for years. Someone else came along and took her away. Tell me, nah, what am I supposed to do?" Before I could respond, he grabbed my wrist and spun me around. In the next moment, I felt something hot and wet brush against my side. My whole body trembled. Ethan was kissing the skin at my waist, slow and unhurried. Ethan, you're insane. Stop it. His fingers slid upward along my ribs, tracing my skin. Stop, he muttered under his breath, voice rough and uneven. If you just broke up with that so-called boyfriend of yours, maybe then I could stop. His fingertips circled lightly over my skin, his tone dark with frustration. Come on, sweetheart. Call that little boyfriend of yours out here. Let me see what he looks like. What's so special about him that made you like him? Huh. My breathing hitched. Panic and something else I couldn't name tangled inside me. Ethan, I gasped, my voice trembling. Are you out of your mind? What boyfriend? I don't even have one. Ethan froze. His eyes cleared a little as he stared at me. You're not seeing anyone. I shoved him away hard. I spend all my time in the lab. When would I have time to date anyone? For a second, a flicker of confusion crossed his eyes. Then he exhaled, releasing me slowly. His voice softened. Nina, I'm sorry. I thought you were ignoring me because you thought I had a boyfriend. I interrupted coldly. You thought some guy made me cut ties with you. I looked at him, my chest tightening until the words came out in a shaky rush. Ethan, even if I did have someone, what does that have to do with you? We're just friends. What right do you have to interfere in my life? The words seemed to hit him like a splash of ice water. His expression shifted and he lowered his head, his voice gentler now. Nah, I'm sorry. Please don't be mad. I took a step back, my tone firm and distant. Keep your distance, Ethan. You have Lana now. Don't come bothering me anymore. He froze, his brows knitting. So that's what this is about. You're ignoring me because of Lana? Then quieter, almost to himself, he muttered. I've only known her for a few months. You really think there was ever something between me and her? Ethan's tone was calm, but there was something dark beneath it. I looked at him in shock. You don't like Lana? He didn't answer, and for a moment I felt completely drained. Everything suddenly felt so tiring. My chest heavy, my mind blank. It didn't even matter anymore. Even if it wasn't Lana, someday there would be someone else. And what right did I have to be upset about that? Maybe it was better this way to end things cleanly now, to stop this endless back and forth that was slowly wearing me down. I was exhausted and I didn't want to keep losing myself over something I could never hold on to. I lifted my head, my voice steady. It doesn't matter anymore, Ethan. You can be with Lana if you want, and I can be with someone else too. Ethan's hand, which had been hanging loosely by his side, clenched slowly into a fist. His lips parted as if he wanted to say something, but I didn't give him the chance. I stepped around him and pulled the door open. Mr. Miller, I said coldly. I'm tired. You should go. His eyes darkened and he turned to leave. But just as he reached the doorway, he stopped. Nah, he said quietly, his voice low and rough. You think it's about that? About some rich girl falling from the sky? He gave a hollow laugh. You're wrong. There was never any choice to begin with. He turned slightly, his gaze unreadable. You were right. We're just friends. What right do I have to tell you what to do? But tell me, Nina, who could ever really be okay with just being your friend? And with that he was gone. That night we entered a cold war. His words played over and over in my head, leaving me frozen in place long after he'd left. It felt like something had slammed against my chest, shaking me to my core. Maybe I'd misunderstood him all along. But this time it really seemed like he was angry. And once words like that are spoken, there's no taking them back. Everything had already happened. I didn't even know how to start a conversation with him anymore, let alone explain myself. I hated that about me, how stubborn, sensitive, and impossible I could be. We used to be inseparable. But that winter break, we seemed to have reached an unspoken agreement. Neither of us reached out to the other. It was the first time we'd ever truly gone without seeing or talking to each other. On New Year's Day, both our families had dinner together. Ethan sat across from me, expressionless, and handed me a red envelope. I barely had time to refuse before he shoved it into my hand, his eyes steady, his voice low but firm. Take it. You can never have too much lucky money. That was the only thing he said to me all night. For the rest of the winter we didn't exchange a single word. When the new semester began, even though we still attended the same university, our worlds were completely separate. Gradually, people around us started to notice something was off. Hey, did Ethan and Na have a fight? No way. They can't have actually fallen out, right? Impossible. They grew up together. They're basically family. Maybe they just argued, but it's been a whole week since classes started. And I haven't seen them together once. Seriously, Nina always looks so sweet. I can't believe she'd even argue with Ethan. Believe it. I'm in their business management class. Ethan's famous for having endless patience with her. Honestly, she's probably the only girl alive who dares talk back to him. No wonder he's been in such a bad mood lately. He's been walking around with that storm cloud look on his face. I wouldn't dare go near him. Ethan was one of the most talked about students on campus, so naturally rumors about us spread fast. To avoid becoming gossip fodder, I tried my best to steer clear of any place I might run into him. But fate seemed to have other plans. One morning on my way to class, I stepped into the elevator just as the doors were about to close, only for a group of guys to walk in. Ethan was at the front, hands in his pockets, looking as effortlessly careless as ever. His closest friends followed behind him, chatting casually. After all that time avoiding him, it seemed I couldn't escape forever. We were about to have a fated, unavoidable encounter. The moment Ethan's eyes swept over me, he clearly froze. Instinctively, I stepped back into the corner of the elevator, trying to make myself smaller, but that small movement didn't escape him. His gaze darkened, and without a word, he stepped inside, stopping right beside me. I clutched the notebook in my arms tighter, lowering my head, pretending to focus on the floor as if that could make me invisible. His friends hadn't noticed me yet, laughing and chatting as they piled in, pushing me even further back against the wall. The elevator was already cramped, and their movement pinned me in place. Just as one of them tried to squeeze in closer, Ethan's leg shot out, nudging the guy back with a quiet but firm kick. "Watch it," he muttered. "You don't see there's someone behind you?" Then he lowered his gaze, looking straight at me. I automatically tried to step back again, but before I could, his hand reached out and caught my wrist. "Don't," he said quietly, his voice a little rough. "You'll hit your head." The touch of his fingers was cool against my skin, and I didn't know what to do, what to feel. My heart was beating wildly, so loud I could almost hear it. His friends finally noticed me. "Hey Nina, you've got this class too?" I nodded slightly, my voice too soft to respond properly. Ethan's hand lingered for a second longer before he slowly let go. The elevator stopped on the 5th floor. "I'm heading to class," I murmured. Ethan looked at me like he wanted to say something, but in the end he only gave a quiet, "Okay, go ahead." We still hadn't made up. I never thought I'd have anything to do with Lana again, but fate had other plans. After wrapping up a research project in the lab, a few seniors suggested we all go out to celebrate. By the time the gathering ended, it was already late. One of the upperclassmen, who'd always been a little too friendly, offered to walk me home. I refused politely, saying I could manage by myself. I didn't expect that. While waiting for a cab, I'd run into 3 drunk men stumbling out of a nearby bar. Their eyes landed on me immediately, sharp and unkind. "Hey, gorgeous," one of them slurred. "What's a pretty thing like you doing out here all alone? Need us to keep you company?" I frowned, thinking idiots, and shifted away from them. "No thanks. You all are weak." The man grinned. "That's not stink, sweetheart. That's the smell of a real man." I covered my nose. Then I'd rather stick with clean air. My bluntness made his expression turn dark. "What did you just say?" he snapped, lowering his head to sniff his own shirt. "Doesn't smell bad to me." Another one laughed. "Girls like you don't know a damn thing." Then his eyes caught on the hearing aid tucked behind my ear. He pointed it out, smirking. "Hey man, look. She's wearing a hearing aid." "What? Is she deaf or something?" The first guy let out an ugly laugh. "Deaf, huh? No wonder she's not saying much. But she talks pretty clearly for a deaf girl, doesn't she?" The third man's smile twisted into something worse. "Deaf? That's a buzzkill. But look at that face. Way too pure to waste. I bet she's fun." Before I could react, one of them reached out, trying to grab my hearing aid. I jerked away, my voice suddenly cold and sharp. "I'm not deaf. I can hear everything you're saying. My hearing's just weak, not gone, so please show some damn respect." I turned to leave, wanting nothing more than to get away. I wasn't scared. There were people around, and surely no one would let something happen in public. But I was wrong. Just as I stepped forward, one of them grabbed my arm and yanked me back hard, his breath reeking of alcohol. A deaf girl acting all high and mighty. Who do you think you are? Come on, how much do you charge? You're disgusting. Let go of me. I shouted, struggling with all my strength. My heart pounded in panic as I glanced around, hoping someone would help. But the men were tall and broad-shouldered, their drunken aggression enough to scare everyone off. Some people nearby hesitated, but when the men glared at them, they quickly looked away. Mind your own business if you know what's good for you, one of them barked. Fear surged through me like cold water. I thrashed violently, refusing to let them drag me away. In the struggle, my hearing aid slipped off and fell to the ground. I immediately crouched down to grab it, forcing my shaking hands to steady. Tears were already falling, splattering onto the back of my hand. My ankle throbbed painfully. I must have twisted it when I stumbled. Just my luck. One of the men reached out to grab my hair. His face twisted in a drunken grin. I clenched my jaw, gripping my hearing aid tightly, ready to run. But before I could move, a sharp scream echoed through the street. Someone yanked me backward, pulling me hard into their arms. A faint scent of soft perfume brushed against my nose. It was Lana. She gently stroked my hair, her touch calm and soothing, as if she were trying to comfort the tremor still running through my body. She took the hearing aid from my shaking hand and carefully placed it back on my ear. Her voice was low and steady. Don't be afraid, Nina. I looked up at her, dazed, and she smiled faintly before brushing the tears from my cheeks. Go sit over there, she said softly. Give me a second to deal with these animals. She started to stand, but I panicked and grabbed the hem of her jacket. It's dangerous. Don't go, I said, my voice trembling. Lana froze for a second, clearly surprised by my reaction, then laughed quietly. She patted my hand reassuringly. Relax. My family owns a boxing gym. She straightened up, adjusting her black coat. Her long legs were steady and sure as she rolled her wrists and gave the three drunks a cool, dismissive look. You wanted to play, right? Fine, let's play. The ringleader scoffed, clearly unimpressed. You? What the hell are you going to do? He didn't even get to finish the sentence before Lana's foot slammed into his chest, sending him sprawling onto the pavement. What followed was a chorus of painful, panicked yells. The man clutched his ribs, crawling toward the bystanders, shouting, Help! Somebody help me! But the crowd that had gathered quickly turned away, pretending not to see. Help you! Lana arched a brow, the corner of her lips curling into a dangerous smirk. Pretty sure no one here likes to meddle in other people's business. She grabbed him by the collar and dragged him back with effortless strength. I sat frozen on a nearby bench, clutching my backpack, eyes wide. She was absolutely radiant, like she was glowing. After a few minutes, she helped me sit down and crouched beside me, checking my injured ankle. I heard you and Ethan are still not speaking, she said suddenly. Her question caught me off guard. I hesitated, then nodded slightly. Yeah. Lana sat next to me. What happened between you two? I can't figure it out. Ethan doesn't strike me as the type to fight with you. It wasn't exactly a fight, I murmured. But I misunderstood him. I pursed my lips and told her everything from the start to the end. While I spoke, the three drunks were crouched nearby under Lana's glare, too scared to move, but clearly eavesdropping on every word. When I finished, one of them actually sighed in exasperation. That's it. Damn girl, you overthink way too much. I know that, I snapped, embarrassed. Lana clicked her tongue, glaring at them. She kicked one of the men sharply. Did I ask for your opinion? You want to eavesdrop and comment now? Get lost. The men scrambled to their feet and stumbled away, muttering apologies. Lana turned back to me, raising a hand like she was taking an oath. Nina Thompson, I swear to the moon and stars, yes, I like flirting with guys, but Ethan absolutely not. The one I'm actually after is his cousin. I blinked in surprise. She laughed. At the bar that night. Yeah, I did flirt on purpose, but only because you two were so painfully slow. I wanted to stir things up a little. It's totally my fault. Before she could finish, I shook my head quickly. No, it's not your fault. It's mine. You didn't do anything wrong. What? And you two have been giving each other the silent treatment this whole time because of that," she said, exasperated. I sighed, feeling defeated. "Yeah." "Oh my God," Lana groaned, dragging a hand down her face. "Ethan Miller, the proud and fearless, turning into a coward just because it's you. Seriously." She grabbed my hand and squeezed it, her tone half teasing, half serious. "If two people like each other, what's the point of overthinking it? Missing out on someone you care about? That's the real regret." I toyed with my sleeve, my voice barely above a whisper. "But after what I said to him, I'm sure he's still mad." Lana raised an eyebrow. "Mad enough to stay that way forever?" she asked, her tone sly as if she already knew the answer. "You said he's mad at you?" Lana asked, pulling out her phone. "Then explain this." She opened a video and what I saw made my breath catch. Ethan, 6 feet 2 inches, broad-shouldered, always composed Ethan, was sitting in the corner of a bar, his head bowed, crying like a lost child. His shoulders trembled as he downed one drink after another, ignoring everyone who tried to stop him. "Come on, Ethan," one of his friends said, patting his back. "We'll figure this out together. I'm sure we can make it right with Nina." "It's not that bad, man." Ethan froze mid-sip. His voice came out in a rough, broken whisper. "Not that bad." Then, as if something had just hit him, his whole body seemed to crumble. Tears streamed harder down his face as he choked out. "It's over. I went too far. She'll never forgive me this time." Everyone around him looked stunned. They had never seen him like this before. Some tried to comfort him. Others, of course, pulled out their phones to record. I stared at the video, unable to stop the tears spilling down my cheeks. Lana had started off a little smug, as if to say, "See, you didn't need to worry so much." But when she saw me crying, her expression instantly shifted to alarm. She ran a hand through her hair and crouched down beside me. "Nina, hey, why are you crying? He's not mad at you. Shouldn't that make you happy?" I shook my head, my eyes red. "It's my fault. If I weren't so sensitive, so stubborn, none of this would have happened. I knew it was a misunderstanding. I could have just cleared it up. But something so simple, I made it so hard." Lana rubbed my head gently. "Hey, it's okay. You're doing fine. Knowing your own flaws, that's already a kind of strength." I gave a weak, teary laugh. "Do you really think so? Why am I like this, Lana? After all these years, he must be so tired of me. I don't even like who I've become anymore." My voice cracked and suddenly I couldn't hold back. I broke down sobbing. Lana froze wide-eyed, like she'd just broken something fragile. She looked around frantically. "Nah. Oh my God. Don't cry, okay? I didn't mean to. Please stop crying." She stood, then crouched, then stood again, completely flustered. Just then, I saw her glance past me in relief. "Oh, thank God you're here, Ethan," she called out. The moment I heard his name, I lifted my head and met his dark, stormy eyes. Ethan was breathing hard, as if he'd run all the way here. His hair was messy, his expression tense as his gaze swept over me, checking every inch as if to make sure I wasn't hurt. Then he dropped to a crouch in front of me. His voice was low, tight with worry. "You were scared, weren't you?" My eyes were still red. "I'm fine. Don't worry," I whispered. Ethan had always protected me. No matter where we went, he'd never let me get into trouble. Never let anyone hurt me. And now for the first time I saw something new in his eyes. Guilt. Deep, heavy guilt. He was blaming himself. My heart clenched painfully. Ethan reached out and gently took my hand, his thumb brushing over my knuckles in a quiet attempt to calm me down. But his presence, his energy was intense, dangerous. Even the 3 drunk men who had harassed me were still crouching on the ground nearby. When they saw how furious Ethan looked, their faces went pale. They tried to shrink into the shadows, but it was too late. Ethan's gaze locked on them, his voice low and deadly. "It was you 3, wasn't it?" The air around him turned cold and sharp, thick with rage. The men stammered, panicked, turning toward Lana. "Well, go to the police station. We'll turn ourselves in." Ethan gave a short, cold laugh. "The police? That's too easy." The next few seconds were filled with the sound of fists connecting with flesh and cries of pain. Ethan didn't hold back. Every punch was heavy, furious, releasing anger he'd been holding in for far too long. Lana walked up quietly and placed her hand over my eyes. "That's enough, Ethan," she said softly. My ankle was badly twisted, and the pain pulsed with every step. Going to the hospital was clearly more important now. Ethan crouched down in front of me without a word, and before I could protest, he gently lifted me onto his back. Lana lit a cigarette nearby, exhaling slowly. "You two go on ahead," she said. "I'll handle these idiots. Can't just leave them freezing out here, even if they deserve it." Ethan glanced back at her and gave a small nod of thanks before walking off toward the nearest hospital. His steps were steady, each one sure and strong. His back was broad and warm, the faint scent of him familiar and grounding. I leaned my head against his shoulder without realizing it. We walked for a long while in silence before he finally spoke, his tone quiet, almost cautious, as if he were trying to sound casual. "Nah, maybe you could stop avoiding me now." He didn't push me for an answer, just waited quietly. But I could feel the slightest tremor in his arms, the faint tension of someone holding something back. My heart clenched tight, an ache spreading through my chest. Ethan was proud by nature. Yet the way he spoke just now, it was soft, almost pleading. It was impossible to turn away from. He said it again, this time even lower. "Don't avoid me anymore." Okay. He was trying to sound calm, but I could still hear the anxiety hidden under his voice. We'd been apart so long that I'd once thought maybe we'd never make up. My throat burned as I pressed my face against his neck. "Ethan, I'm sorry." He stopped in his tracks. "Sorry for what?" I tightened my arms around him. I just wanted to say it. There were so many things I wanted to tell him, but the words tangled in my chest. I didn't know where to start. Still, it was as if he understood everything without me having to explain. He gave a soft laugh, his voice gentle. "Silly girl, you don't need to apologize to me." Because I couldn't hear the world clearly. I'd always learned to read people's expressions, to depend on silence more than sound. That habit made me cautious, hesitant. I second-guessed myself too much, never daring to fight for anything I wanted. I had lived 21 years as a coward. But at that moment, the invisible wall between us, one I'd never dared to break, finally disappeared. My ears were burning. "Ethan," I whispered, my voice trembling. "Would you want to try dating me?" His body stiffened for a second while I grew more and more nervous, fidgeting with my hands. I know I can be difficult. Being with someone like me must be exhausting. So, if you want to say no, it's okay. Maybe once I've grown a little, when I'm better, maybe then. My voice grew smaller with every word. Ethan's shoulders shook slightly, and then I heard a quiet, low, "You idiot," he said softly, the corners of his lips curving upward. He kept walking, carrying me as easily as before, his voice lazy but full of warmth as he murmured near my ear, "But I like you just the way you are." In that instant, it felt like fireworks exploded inside my chest. Ethan and I were finally together. After a month, his true self began to show, and only then did I realize just how much he'd been holding back all those years. At night, when he noticed I was anxious or distracted, he would take off my hearing aid, cutting off the sounds of the world so I could focus only on him. Without the noise, I became more aware of everything else. His breath, his heartbeat, his warmth, his kisses were deep and consuming, his arms tight around me as if he couldn't bear to let go. When everything reached its peak, I could barely breathe. He said something then, his voice low and sincere. I couldn't hear it, but I saw his lips clearly. Every word, every shape. "Nina Thompson," he mouthed. "In every choice I've ever had, I choose you. There are too many kinds of harmony in the world. Too many sounds blending into one another. But my ears can only catch a few of them. There will always be words left unsaid, feelings left unspoken. We spend so long believing we're too ordinary, too quiet, too small that we forget something important. You are not invisible. You matter to the entire universe. No star shines brighter than you. Just like the summer cicadas, tiny, fleeting, but their song defines the whole season. Remember this. The mountains bloom and the rivers sparkle because of you. Epilogue. Ever since elementary school, Ethan Miller had been the kind of boy everyone called a little tyrant. He always acted lazy and indifferent in front of everyone except when it came to me. With me, Ethan was completely different. No matter what happened, if my eyes turned red or my tears even started to fall, he would immediately blame himself. He'd rush to comfort me, fumbling for words, his hands clumsy but gentle as they wiped my tears, terrified of rubbing my skin too roughly. After all, his hands were calloused, And he didn't want to hurt his precious girl. It didn't take him long to realize that when it came to me, he was utterly powerless. As long as I was by his side, all the sharp edges of his personality seemed to soften on their own. Even when his voice carried that usual arrogant teasing tone of a young man, there was a hidden tenderness beneath it that only I could hear. "Nina, don't cry anymore," he'd say, the corners of his mouth twitching into a small smile that never failed to calm me. Ethan realized he liked me when he was 16. That day after school he saw a neat, soft-spoken boy, one of the class officers, standing nervously in front of me with a love letter in his hands. The boy had a clean-cut look, polite and well-behaved, the kind of person who'd never been in a fight. Ethan knew perfectly well that he had no right to interfere. It wasn't his place. But when he saw my ears turning red, embarrassment coloring my cheeks, something inside him snapped. A strange irritation flared in his chest. He told himself to let it go, but he couldn't. All he could think was one question. Why? Why should the girl he'd quietly watched and protected all this time end up belonging to someone else? Before he could even think it through, his body was already moving. He stepped forward, snatched the letter from the boy's hand. The boy, startled, tried to resist, wanting to hand it to me himself. But when his eyes met Ethan's, cold and sharp enough to freeze him in place, he immediately faltered. "Ethan," the boy stammered. Ethan let out a low, cold laugh. "So this is what a model student does now? Trying to flirt with my girl? Planning to start young, huh?" He wasn't someone people wanted to mess with, and the boy knew it. He looked terrified, but still tried to explain himself. Ethan didn't even bother to listen. He simply slung my backpack over his shoulder, grabbed my hand and pulled me along. As we passed the boy, Ethan turned his head just slightly, his tone calm but dangerous. "Don't let there be a next time." It wasn't until we'd walked a long way, when his anger began to fade, that Ethan realized he was still holding my hand. Panic flickered through him. What if I was upset with him for acting on his own? But I didn't seem angry. I looked up at him with my usual gentle smile. "Thank you," I said softly. I got so nervous I didn't even know how to turn him down. Ethan couldn't bring himself to meet my eyes. If I had, maybe I would have noticed how tightly he was clenching his jaw, struggling not to pull me into his arms because deep down he knew. He was no different from the other boys who liked me. He just hid it better. He had the kind of face that made people assume he was a flirt. But in truth, Ethan had no idea how to chase after someone. He tried to confess more than once, but every time the words stuck in his throat, and I never understood his hints no matter how obvious they were. He didn't dare cross the line. He knew how sensitive I was. If he went too far, if he ruined what we had, I might never talk to him again. And that thought terrified him. When I turned 18, my family hosted a lavish birthday party for me. The guest list was filled with prominent people from across Crestview City. Everyone at the party whispered in disbelief when they saw Ethan Miller, the proud, aloof young heir, lowering himself to comfort someone so carefully. They'd never seen him so patient, so soft. But only Ethan knew the truth. He'd lost control that night. He understood the real reason my family had organized that grand event. It wasn't just a celebration. It was meant to help me meet a suitable match, a man of equal status, someone worthy. And my Ethan, my best friend, was painfully aware that I had no idea at all. Every spoiled, rich kid in the room couldn't take their eyes off me. Their gazes lingered far too long, greedy and assessing. Ethan noticed immediately. His throat tightened as he swallowed hard. Then he pulled me gently into his arms. "Tired?" he asked softly. "If you are, I'll take you upstairs to rest." Without waiting for me to answer, he led me out of the banquet hall. He brought me back to my room, making sure I was settled before leaving. Even as the party carried on downstairs, full of people trying to use the opportunity to get close to my family, none of them managed to approach me again. By the time the hall finally emptied, Ethan still didn't understand what had come over him that night. Frustrated, he poured himself drink after drink, the bitter taste of alcohol only making the heat in his chest worse. When he finally looked up again, he found himself standing in front of my bedroom door. That's right, he'd come to deliver the pair of high heels he'd spent weeks picking out. He'd chosen them himself, certain they'd suit me perfectly. But when I opened the door, I had just gotten out of the shower. My hair was still damp. My skin carried the soft scent of soap and warmth. The moment our eyes met, something inside him snapped. He didn't even realize what he was doing until his hand was already on the door, pressing me gently back against it. It was supposed to be nothing, just a gift. But the atmosphere thickened, dangerous and uncontrollable. Ethan's eyes darkened. Slowly, he tucked a strand of my wet hair behind my ear. His voice low and rough. "Nah, could you try liking me the way I like you?" But I wasn't wearing my hearing aid. My expression turned confused as I pointed to my ear. "What did you say? I can't hear you." He froze, his hand still resting beside my face. Then he sighed quietly, the tension leaving his shoulders. Carefully, he released me and guided me to sit down on the edge of the bed. Without saying another word, he knelt in front of me, lifted one of my feet into his palm, and slipped the heels onto my feet, the very pair he'd chosen for this night. His fingers brushed against my ankle, slow and gentle. "Beautiful," he murmured almost to himself. Startled, I instinctively pulled my foot back. The movement snapped him out of his trance. Panic flickered in his eyes. He'd scared me, hadn't he? Trying to make up for it, Ethan reached up and carefully fixed my hearing aid back in place. Our eyes met. His voice came out low and sincere. "Happy 18th birthday, Nina." I blinked, my voice small. "Ethan, are you drunk?" He looked down, lips curving into a faint, tired smile. "Yeah," he whispered. "Maybe I am." That same night, my parents sat in the study, flipping through a stack of photographs. Their faces were serious as they discussed potential candidates for an arranged engagement. Ethan didn't wait for an invitation. He walked straight into the room, calm and composed, and sat down across from them. Then, with quiet respect, he poured 2 cups of tea, one for my father, one for my mother, and offered them with both hands. "Uncle, Aunt," he said politely, his voice steady. "If you're considering someone to marry, would you consider me?" My parents exchanged a look. Their expressions conflicted. Though they were strict with me, they loved me deeply. They never cared about wealth or family influence. They only wanted me to marry someone decent and dependable. They'd once thought of Ethan, of course, but the Miller family status was simply too high. Compared to them, our family was climbing too far out of reach. But the boy standing before them now, usually so reckless, so arrogant, was looking at them with clear, unwavering eyes. "Tell me to give up," he said with a small, crooked smile. "That's never going to happen." He was determined, unshakably so. And that night, my 18th birthday, when I was still blissfully unaware, Ethan Miller knelt before my parents and served them tea with his own hands. They accepted it. Everyone said Ethan and I came from 2 different worlds. His life was bright and dazzling, like a field of spring flowers in full bloom. Mine, on the other hand, was quiet, ordinary, barren even. But when he looked at me, at my gentle smile, at my slightly curved eyes, his heart whispered something only he could hear. "I want her to always smile like this." He didn't want me to live a dull, predictable life. He wanted to stay by my side, to see me bloom, to see me shine in my own light for the rest of my life. When I was in middle school, the most rebellious thing I ever did was sneak mango slices behind my parents' backs. My skin was terribly sensitive. I'd break out in hives every time I touched mango. But my mouth couldn't resist, so I'd hide in the far corner of the classroom, solemnly and carefully cutting the mango into small, neat pieces. I held a toothpick like a weapon, concentrating as if I were going into battle. With exaggerated care, I lifted each tiny piece of mango to my lips and took the smallest bite, savoring it with visible satisfaction. I thought no one would notice. But I had no idea that Ethan Miller, the same boy who always seemed fearless, reckless, and untouchable, would find the most nerve-wracking moments of his life watching me eat mango. He knew I was allergic. He knew just one wrong bite could send me into hives or worse. But he also knew how much I loved it. And because of that, he never had the heart to stop me. Every time I started cutting up a mango, Ethan would instantly drop whatever he was doing. He'd pretend not to care, acting all casual and nonchalant, but his eyes would quietly track every movement I made. He'd hold his breath until the very last bite disappeared, and I looked perfectly fine. Only then would he finally exhale, relief flooding his chest. "Thank God," he'd think. "My na's okay." Ethan Miller, who had never once in his life been afraid of anything, found that the only thing that could ever truly scare him was me.